Good morning, class 11th. Class 11th, we have started our chapter 1. I hope that whatever the part we have discussed, you do not have any sort of problem. Now we are going to discuss further. Okay? My grandmother and I were good friends. Who is I in the first line here? I is author. So both of them, they were good friends as it is described by the author. Okay, so whenever you have to write about their relationship, suppose if the question comes, you can mention this line also, that they were good friends. My parents left me with her when they went to live in the city, and we were constantly together. It means author is living with his grandmother in the village, and the parents, they have shifted to the city. And when they here I am using for the parents of the author, when they left to the when they went to the city, then from that time author and grandmother, they were living together. She used to wake me up in the morning and get me ready for school. She used to wake me up in the morning and get me ready for school. Now he is describing the way of living when they were in the village. Okay, grandmother, she was taking care of the author as usual. Means she used to wake him up in the morning, then get him ready for school. She said her morning prayer in a monotonous sing song while she bathed and dressed me, in the hope that I would listen and get to know it by heart. Grandmother was in the habit, she was in the habit of what? She was in the habit to sing morning prayers. And author described that she said her morning prayers in a monotonous sing song. Monotonous because it was boring for the author. And she usually said her morning prayers, especially when she bathed him and dressed him, in the hope that he would listen and get to know it by heart. The purpose of grandmother to sing her morning prayer was that she was willing that her grandson must listen to her very carefully and he must learn by the heart. I listened, author is saying, I listened because I loved her voice, but never bothered to learn it. He used to listen because he loved her voice, but he never tried to learn it by heart. Then she would then she would fetch some wooden slate which she had already washed and plastered with yellow chalk. Now it was the time of the author, as he was just about to leave the house, as he was just about to leave for school. She would fetch his wooden slate, which he had already washed and plastered with yellow chalk. A tiny earthen ink pot Then she would fetch my wooden slate, which she had already washed and plastered with yellow chalk, a tiny earthen ink pot, and a red pen, tie them all in a bundle, and hand it to me. So, grandmother prepare him for the school, give him the slate, which was already plastered with the yellow chalk, and a tiny earthen ink pot and a red pen. After a breakfast of a thick stale chapati, with a little butter and sugar spread on it, we went to school. Underline this one. First, whatever she hand him over for the school. Second thing, whatever she used to give him in breakfast. Breakfast of a thick stale chapati with little butter and sugar spread on it. Then both of them, they went to school. She carried several stale chapatis with her for the village dogs. Not only that, grandmother. Again, it is showing the character of grandmother. Okay, she used to carry some chapatis for the village dog too. My grandmother always went to school with me because the school was attached to the temple. The grandmother, she always went to school with the author because the school was attached to the temple. The purpose was author will go to school and grandmother will go to temple. The priest taught us the alphabet and the morning prayer. The priest taught us alphabet and the morning prayer while the children sat in rows on either side of the veranda singing the alphabet or the prayer in a chorus. My grandmother sat inside reading scriptures. Scriptures means holy books. So when the primary kids, they used to sing or they used to chant prayers and all, at that moment grandmother used to sit inside the temple and she used to read what? Scriptures. When we had both finished, we would walk back together. This time the village dogs would meet us at the temple door. They followed us to our home, growling and fighting with each other for the chapatis we threw to them. It means when they go to the school, grandmother went with him, and when they come back home, again means together. They used to go to school and they come back home. When my parents were comfortably settled in the city, they sent for us. Sent for means to call. Then they called grandmother and author where? In the city. That was a turning point in our friendship. Which was a turning point? When they were called in city. So it's saying that was a turning point in our friendship. Although we shared the same room, my grandmother no longer came to school with me. I used to go to an English school in a motor bus. It's saying, although we shared the same room, my grandmother no longer came to school with me because the reason was now the author is going to school in a motor bus. So grandmother could not go with him. I used to go to an English school in a motor bus. There was no dogs in the streets and she took to feeding sparrows in the courtyard of our city. Means she was very kind. In the village she used to give stale chapatis to the dogs. As in the city there were no dogs, so she started feeding sparrows. Okay. As the years rolled by, we saw less of each other. As the years rolled by means as the time passed, we saw less of each other. For some time, she continued to wake me up and get me ready for school. For some time means when they settled in the city, for some time grandmother, she continued to wake him up and get him ready for school. And when I came back, she would ask me what the teacher had taught me. And when the author came back to home, grandmother used to ask whatever he had been taught in the school by the teachers. Dear students, every parents or the grandparents must do. When the child went back to home from school, they must discuss the things with him. The complete schedule, whatever he had done at school, it must be discussed by the parents. I would tell her English words and little things of Western science and learnings. And when the grandmother used to ask him, he used to reply, he says, I would tell her English words and little things of Western science and learning. For example, the law of gravity, underline, Archimedes' principle, underline, the world being round, etc. So when grandmother used to ask him, he used to reply that he had learnt what? The law of gravity, Archimedes' principle, the world being around, etc. So underline this one. This made her unhappy. This made her unhappy. Why? Because in the village, the priest used to teach them what? Prayers and alphabets. Here in the city school, there was no prayer. That's why grandmother was upset. She could not help me with my lessons. That was also the reason that she was upset, because now he is learning what? He is learning science and English. For example, the law of gravity, Archimedes' principle, etc. Now grandmother could not help him in his lessons. She did not believe in the things they taught at the English school and was distressed that there was no teaching about God and the scriptures. So the grandmother was totally perturbed. She was disturbed. She was distressed. She was unhappy. The reason was, in city school, there was no teaching of God and scriptures. One day, I announced that we were being given music lessons. One day, I announced that we were being given music lessons. Actually, you know it very well that English medium schools, they try that each and every child must develop all sorts of skills. So he was being given their music lesson also. She was very disturbed. She was very disappointed. To her, music had lewd association. To her, music had lewd association. Lewd association means referring to sex, you can say, or referring in an offensive way, you can say. It was the monopoly of harlots. Harlots means the prostitutes, you can say, and beggars, and not meant for gentlefolk. She used to consider that music is not for the gentlefolk. She said nothing, but her silence meant disapproval. So she was totally against it, and that's why she did not say anything, and her silence meant disapproval. She rarely talked to me after that. And after that, she rarely talked to him. So dear students, till here, you will note down the value points, okay, and the vocab in your fair notebook, or you will take out the characteristics of grandmother. You will also note down their relation when they were in the village, and what sort of changes came in their relation when they shifted in city. Till here, okay. Thank you.